The hall of the Valkar Dominion's grand arena shimmered under soft alien lights, casting long reflections over polished metal floors. Thousands of delegates from across the galaxy had gathered. Their forms varied in shape, color, and size, each representing a different planet or species. Yet all eyes were drawn to the center, where the Valkyrie heir, Princess Leora, stood with her back straight, her long silvery hair flowing over the edges of her organic bioarmor. She was 18, strong, proud, and used to commanding attention. Her sharp eyes scanned the crowd, then rested on the small figure entering the arena from the distant human delegation. The human wore dented, slightly scratched metallic armor, far simpler than the Valkyrie suits, which were fused with living crystals that glimmered softly with energy. The alien crowd laughed quietly, exchanging amused glances. Some shook their heads in disbelief, whispering to each other, how could such a puny human expect to face a Valkyrie warrior, let alone their princess? Princess Leora's lips curled in a faint, disdainful smile. She lifted her hand and gestured for silence. "Is this the best the human faction can send?" she said, her voice ringing clear and confident. "A child in scraps of metal thinking it can face the Valkyrie?" Her words cut through the arena, and her laughter followed, light and musical but dripping with scorn. The audience erupted in cheers, half in excitement, half in mockery. The human, Commander Ethan Cole, did not flinch. He walked steadily toward the center, his movements calm and precise. He carried no weapon except for a standard human combat blade, its hilt worn from years of use. Despite the laughter and the whispers, his posture remained upright, his eyes focused. There was no hesitation, no fear, only a quiet confidence that seemed to unsettle those watching. Princess Leora frowned. Humans were supposed to be weak, untrained, and easy to humiliate. Yet this one moved like he belonged in the arena. "You dare enter my domain wearing that?" Leora said, stepping forward. Her voice carried across the hall, challenging and sharp. "Your armor is thin. Your kind has no strength. Do you truly believe you can survive against me?" Ethan paused, glancing at her with steady, unwavering eyes. "Armor doesn't win battles," he replied simply. "Discipline does. Strength of mind, skill, and timing. That is what matters." A murmur ran through the audience. The princess looked at him, annoyed and intrigued at the same time. No human had ever spoken like that in her presence before. Usually they cowered, laughed nervously, or fell to their knees begging for mercy. This one did neither. He stood as if the arena itself could not intimidate him. Leora raised an eyebrow. "Very well," she said, turning to the officials who had gathered nearby. "A duel, then. Public. Let all see the foolishness of a human trying to match a Valkyrie princess." The officials nodded and signaled for the barriers to be lowered. The arena floor shimmered with a faint energy grid designed to prevent serious injury. For all its theatricality, it was meant to keep the duel controlled, though no one doubted the Valkyrie princess could easily shatter it if she chose to. Ethan glanced at the grid, then back at Leora. He nodded slightly as if to say he understood the rules. The crowd fell silent as the duel began. Leora moved first, her strikes fast, precise, and powerful. Each swing of her arm seemed to carry the force of a storm, and the crystal armor amplified her movements. Most warriors would have been knocked back immediately. Ethan, however, shifted his weight, letting her energy flow past him, redirecting rather than blocking. He didn't strike, but he didn't falter either. Leora's eyes widened in surprise. She had expected him to flinch or stumble. Instead, he moved like water, precise, disciplined, and calm. His simple armor absorbed what little energy reached him, and his body moved with practiced efficiency. The princess's strikes became more forceful, more complicated, but still Ethan avoided injury. The alien audience, who had expected an easy display of superiority, began whispering among themselves. "How is he doing this?" one Valkyrie elder murmured. "No human has ever moved like this." Leora's frustration grew. She pressed harder, spinning and striking with a combination of speed and power meant to overwhelm her opponent. But Ethan was always just a step ahead. He watched her, analyzed her every movement, and moved to neutralize each attack without using raw strength. Finally, Leora stopped abruptly. She pointed at him, her chest heaving slightly. "Enough! Stop hiding behind that tin. Remove your armor and face me like a true warrior." Her voice carried anger and disbelief. She had thought his simple suit protected him, but now it seemed he relied on skill far beyond what she had anticipated. Ethan glanced at her calmly. He reached behind him and unclasped the armor straps. With careful movements, he let it fall to the floor. The metallic clatter echoed through the arena. He stood there, bare except for his uniform and combat boots, revealing a lean, scarred, and disciplined human body. His arms and torso showed years of training, every muscle honed for movement, endurance, and combat, yet nothing about him was enhanced by technology. A gasp ran through the audience. The crowd stared at him wide-eyed. Leora froze. She expected fear, trembling, perhaps even a plea for mercy. But none came. Instead, she saw unwavering confidence. She felt something unfamiliar, a pang of respect mingled with shock. You stand without protection?" she said, her voice softer yet still incredulous. "Why?" Ethan looked at her and smiled faintly. "Because humanity doesn't need armor to be strong. We become our own strength." The arena fell completely silent. For the first time, no one laughed. The Valkyrie princess took a step closer, her movements cautious. She had faced countless warriors in her life, and none had ever dared to remove their armor in her presence. None had ever shown this kind of courage. Leora adjusted her grip on her weapon, but the intensity of her strikes changed. She was no longer just attacking to prove superiority. She was now curious, watching him closely. Ethan read her eyes and prepared himself, not with anger or pride, but with focus. The duel resumed, but it was no longer one-sided. Leora struck, her movements sharp and fast, yet Ethan continued to evade and redirect without harm. He anticipated her attacks, reading the rhythm, understanding her strengths and weaknesses. The human's movements were simple yet effective, calculated, precise, and elegant in their efficiency. The crowd began to murmur again, this time in awe. "Look at him," whispered one Valkyrie spectator. "He moves without armor, and he is not afraid. How can this be?" Leora's own heart raced. She had faced alien champions, veterans of hundreds of duels, yet she had never seen someone so disciplined, so fearless, with no armor, no enhancement, just skill. She pushed herself harder, spinning, dodging, striking in combinations designed to test every limit. Yet Ethan never panicked, never overextended, never faltered. Suddenly, he caught her wrist mid-strike, not with brute force, but with perfect timing. He held it for a moment, looking her in the eye. The energy in the arena seemed to pause. The crowd leaned forward, holding their breath. Leora stared at him, shock and awe battling within her. The human had not only survived her attack, but had met her strength without fear or aggression. "Why?" she whispered, almost to herself. "Why are you so calm?" Ethan released her wrist and stepped back, bowing slightly, a gesture of respect rather than surrender. "Because fear weakens the body," he said softly, "and arrogance blinds the mind." The arena erupted into whispers, some in disbelief, some in admiration. No one had expected a human to perform like this, to meet a Valkyrie princess without armor, to stand so confidently against overwhelming strength. Leora's own expression softened, though she would never admit it aloud. Something in the way he moved, the way he controlled himself, demanded respect. She took a deep breath, lowering her weapon slightly. You are unlike any human I have ever seen," she said. The words were both an acknowledgement and a question. Her blue eyes, sharp and discerning, studied him intently. Ethan met her gaze without flinching, his calm presence radiating strength without pride. The crowd watched, captivated. What had begun as a contest of power was transforming into a lesson in honor, discipline, and courage. Leora realized she had underestimated the human, and for the first time, she felt that thrill she had never experienced, the thrill of facing someone truly worthy of respect. As the duel slowed, Ethan took a step forward, not to attack, but to demonstrate that strength could exist without aggression, that courage could exist without armor. Leora lowered her weapon completely, her mind racing. She had scoffed at him, expected to dominate him, yet here he stood, unharmed, unafraid, and commanding respect from every corner of the arena. She whispered to herself, a mixture of awe and curiosity, "Who is he?" And in that moment, the first seeds of an unlikely respect and perhaps something more were planted. The duel was far from over, yet something had already changed in Princess Leora. Her pride had met discipline and courage, and she did not know if she was ready to face what came next. Princess Leora stood in the center of the arena, her silver hair catching the faint lights that glimmered off the polished floors. She had expected the human to tremble when she asked him to remove his armor. She had expected fear, or at least hesitation. Yet Ethan Cole had stood there calm, unarmed except for his own body and the small blade at his side. His confidence was unsettling. It was the kind that could inspire fear in some and respect in others. For Leora, it stirred something entirely new, a challenge to her pride. The audience was hushed now, no longer laughing or whispering among themselves. They had watched countless battles, seen champions from countless worlds fall before the Valkyrie, yet none had ever met a princess without fear or hesitation. They watched Ethan's movements carefully, waiting for a mistake that might never come. Leora took a deep breath and shifted her stance. She had trained her entire life to fight with her armor, to rely on strength amplified by the living crystals bonded to her body. Now she faced a human who had none of that, yet moved with unmatched precision. She struck first, a fast, twisting blow aimed at his side. Ethan pivoted, stepping inside the curve of her strike rather than away, letting the momentum pass harmlessly along his body. He countered not with force, but with a gentle redirection that left Leora off balance for the first time in her life. The princess blinked. This was impossible. No human, no weak species had ever moved like this. Her strikes, so fast and so powerful, had met resistance, anticipation, and control without violence. She shifted again, forcing her body to move faster, to strike in unpredictable patterns. Ethan matched her, reading her movements, adjusting and redirecting. His eyes were calm, calculating, almost serene. For the first time, Leora felt frustration. Her attacks were stronger, faster, more skilled than any of her opponents before. Yet this human was not only surviving, he was thriving. The thought unsettled her. She had never had to push herself like this before. She had always been able to overwhelm with raw strength or the unique abilities of her armor. Now none of that worked. "Why aren't you afraid?" she asked, her voice sharp but quieter than before. It was not a taunt. It was genuine curiosity. Ethan didn't answer immediately. He moved fluidly, dodging and redirecting another strike. Then, when they briefly paused to reassess, he looked at her. "Because fear weakens you," he said simply. "And arrogance blinds you. I do not need to be afraid. I need to see clearly." Leora's eyes widened. His words were simple, but they carried truth she had never considered. She had always fought assuming she was superior, assuming her opponents would tremble before her. Yet this human seemed to measure strength differently. He measured it not by what he could destroy, but by what he could endure and redirect. The audience leaned forward. They had never witnessed such a duel. The human, with no enhancements, no armor, no technological aid, was not just surviving against a princess. He was teaching her, silently, the value of focus, patience, and discipline. The duel continued. Leora adjusted her approach, striking less with force and more with unpredictability. She spun, twisted, and leapt, testing his ability to react. Each time Ethan moved, anticipated, and countered without aggression, without reckless speed. He didn't strike to injure. He struck to redirect, to neutralize, to show mastery. The princess gasped once, narrowly missing a fall as he moved inside her strike and stepped back. Her breath came in sharp bursts, her heart racing in a way it never had before. She had met champions of her own people and beaten them with ease, but she had never faced a human who could move like this without armor. She realized something that both startled and humbled her. She had underestimated him. Ethan stepped closer, matching her speed and stance. His movements were measured, precise, yet every step seemed effortless. Leora noticed something in the rhythm of his actions, a calm confidence that did not rely on the armor she wore, the crystals, or the strength of her lineage. It was raw skill and discipline, honed through years of training and experience. For a moment, the duel became more than combat. It became a silent conversation, a test of understanding and respect. Leora attacked not to win, but to see how much he could endure, how much he could anticipate. Ethan moved not to dominate, but to demonstrate control, to show her that strength was more than just power. It was precision, calmness, and clarity. The crowd could sense the tension, the shifting dynamic. The whispers had ceased. Even the Valkyrie elders were silent, watching with wide eyes. The human had become more than a contestant. He had become a teacher, revealing something none of them had understood before. Leora struck again, a powerful spinning blow aimed at Ethan's shoulder. He caught her wrist mid-strike, not with brute force, but with perfect timing and gentle control. The arena seemed to hold its breath. The princess froze, stunned. This human, bare and unarmed, had matched her in speed, in skill, in precision, and had not even struck a single blow against her. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper, her pride struggling with the awe she felt. "Why do you fight like this?" Ethan released her wrist and stepped back, bowing slightly. His eyes met hers. "Because strength without discipline is wasted," he said. "Power alone cannot teach, nor can it inspire. Only skill, clarity, and courage can." Leora's chest heaved as she absorbed his words. She had trained her whole life, thinking strength and heritage were enough. Yet this human, so simple and unadorned, had revealed something she had never understood. He had shown her that courage could exist without enhancements, that mastery could exist without superiority. For the first time, she lowered her weapon completely. She did not strike. She did not challenge. She simply studied him, breathing heavily, her mind racing. The crowd leaned forward, sensing a shift in the duel. What had begun as a fight to display superiority had transformed into something else entirely. A lesson, a revelation, and perhaps the beginning of respect. Ethan did not attack. He moved with grace, demonstrating the calmness of his skill. Leora realized that her pride had met something it could not crush: discipline, focus, and fearlessness. She felt admiration stirring within her, unbidden and unfamiliar. "Human," she said, her voice steady, though softer than before. "You have not only survived but humbled me. Why?" Ethan's expression was calm, almost serene. "Because we become what we must," he said. "Strength is not in the armor, not in the weapon, not in the title. It is in the heart, the mind, and the courage to face what others cannot." The arena erupted into whispers and murmurs, some shocked, some amazed. The Valkyrie princess, once haughty and proud, now stood in a quiet, rare humility. Leora felt the weight of the realization pressing on her. She had judged this human too quickly, assuming weakness where there was none. She raised her eyes to meet his, and for the first time a smile touched her lips. It was not the mocking smile of before. It was genuine, acknowledging skill, courage, and honor. She bowed slightly, an unfamiliar gesture of respect. "Teach me, human," she said. "Show me this strength you speak of. Let me understand what I have never seen before." Ethan nodded, a quiet smile of his own crossing his face. "If you are willing to learn," he said. "Strength is more than power. It is knowing when to act, when to wait, and how to endure. That is the human way." The crowd erupted into cheers, but it was not for a winner or loser. They cheered for courage, for skill, and for the moment when two warriors met as equals despite the differences of their worlds. The duel had ended not with victory or defeat, but with understanding and mutual respect. Princess Leora straightened, her heart racing but her mind clear. She had faced a human and she had been humbled. And yet, she felt a thrill she had never known. The excitement of meeting someone who challenged her not through arrogance or power, but through skill, calmness, and courage. Ethan stepped closer, his presence steady and unassuming. He did not boast. He did not demand recognition. Yet every eye in the arena followed him, captivated by the quiet force of his discipline. Leora took a deep breath and extended her hand, not as a challenge, but as an offer of alliance. "Human," she said, her voice carrying through the arena, "you have my respect. Will you stand with me, not as a rival, but as a companion in learning and strength?" Ethan took her hand, firm and steady. "I will," he said. "Together, we can show what true courage looks like, not in armor or weapons, but in discipline, skill, and heart." The princess nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. She had scoffed at him, expected to humiliate him. Yet now she saw that the true strength of a warrior lay not in armor or heritage, but in courage, discipline, and unwavering focus. And so, what began as mockery and arrogance transformed into respect and partnership. The human had not only survived, but had opened her eyes to a new kind of strength, one that went beyond her imagination. The arena was silent now, but the energy in the air was electric, filled with admiration, awe, and the promise of a future shaped by courage and understanding. Princess Leora and Commander Ethan Cole stood together, not as adversaries, but as equals, each having seen in the other a strength beyond the ordinary. And in that moment, the galaxy seemed to pause, recognizing that true power was not in the armor worn, but in the heart, the mind, and the courage to face the impossible.